Welcome to DVC Alumni, where every story inspires the next. The Alumni podcast where you get to hear the inspiring stories and transformation that DVC has had to offer its alumni. And now, on with the episode.
Well, first of all, thank you, Charley, for having me here. I'm super excited to be a part of this podcast today. DVC has a special place in my heart, so I'm super excited to talk to all of you. So I hope you find this valuable. Just to tell you a little bit about me and how I grew up. Well, I actually was born and raised in Mexico, in Guadalajara, and I moved to the US when I was 17. When I was actually 5 or 6 years old, I moved to the US with my family for about a year and a half. And then we went back to Mexico and then we returned when I was 17. So that's a little bit about my upbringing, how I grew up. And I moved here to the US because of my family situation. My dad got a great job here, a great opportunity. So we just all moved here with my family. So I I have a really interesting thing here when it comes to my graduation because this is something that people may not know about me. But um, when I was in high school, it was a little bit of a rough period for me because I went to school in Mexico and I spent, well, the everything in high school up to my last semester. That's when I moved here to the US. So that was a little bit rough because I had graduated from a school that I didn't really know anything about. It was the last semester here. And it was rough because I didn't know anyone. I didn't know the system. And I was just put in a school that, it was just for me to graduate. I actually graduated high school from Clayton Valley Charter High School in Clayton, California. And everyone was talking about graduation and where they were going to go next. And I had no idea. All I knew is I wanted to be a lawyer. And I didn't know anything about the system in this country. I didn't know how to even apply to go to school or do anything. So that was a period of a lot of anxiety because I didn't know anything about how to submit an application, and applications were done back then, right? I got here in December and people already knew where they were going to go and I had no clue. So that's actually how I ended up in DVC. I was the first generation here in this country. I had already missed application deadlines and I didn't want to take a gap year. So I basically had two different choices. Either I take a gap year or um, I go and, do community college. So I was like, okay, I didn't even know that was an option. I thought you had to go straight into a 4-year school. And it was an amazing recommendation from one of my uncles. He said, it's a great deal. You can just go for 2 years, get your education. And then from there, you can just go and figure out where you want to go next. So that's how I ended up in DVC, and I don't regret it at all. I think DVC for sure had such an impact in my life, not just from a personal standpoint, but in my career. It allowed me to do so many great things. So, yeah, that's a little bit about my journey and where
Okay.
I grew up and how I got to be in DVC.
Cool. So, and I mean, I love the journey thing because the DVC is kind of that place where people get their feet under them
Mhm.
all the time. And so you showed up on our doorstep. You didn't have more than 15 minutes in the United States, and so you were
Yeah.
kind of like, okay, try to figure out what's next. What is some of your favorite memories? I mean, were you part of the clubs here at DVC, or were you like, how did you get yourself integrated into the kind of DVC society?
Yes, that is a great question. So, actually, when I first got into DVC, one of my main goals was to better my English. I felt like I had, even though I spoke English very well, I still felt like I wanted to be more confident in my communication, maybe polish my accent a little bit. So I ended up working full time. So that didn't allow me to have a lot of time to spend at DVC, right? Because I was going in and out, right? I was going into school from 8 a.m. to 2 p.m. And then I had 1 hour between, you know, going to school and then getting ready to go to work. So I started work at 3 p.m. and then I finished work at, yeah, like 9 or 10 p.m. sometimes. So that was a little bit of how I was juggling both things at the same time. So even though I didn't have, I wasn't really a part of a club at DVC, there are some amazing lessons that I took by just being in this community college. For me, one thing that I take away for my life in general is the concept of time. I feel like it can either be your best friend or your biggest enemy, depending on how you look at it. So, for a long time, I thought I was late. I thought I was falling behind because I wasn't able to take 4 or 5 classes every single semester. But then I realized that being behind on my school was actually one of the reasons why my career took off. So, because I was able to combine school and hands on experience with work, that was actually how I was able to start an amazing career. And it even helped me land amazing opportunities that people usually would have to wait until after graduation. So, working full time and being at DVC gave me just such an amazing flexibility to be able to do both and really build myself up as a professional and being able to experiment many different things, which is something that I think it's incredible, having the ability to take all of these different classes and really get to see what you want to do with your life, especially when you're 18. Like, you're supposed to make all these decisions and figure out what you want to do for the rest of your life, and you're so young. And I feel like that's something that people don't put into perspective. They put this responsibility in us on, like, you have to make a decision, and that decision that you make is going to impact the rest of your life, right? So being having the ability to do both and really develop myself as a professional and still continue to pursue my education, I think that was extremely valuable. So you get to pick and choose, you can make time your best friend or your biggest enemy. It's all about the mindset that you have.
Wow, that's something I didn't learn until I was much later in life. So it's the fact that you learned it at that point is amazing. We'll touch one more time on DVC and then we'll go on because I have by the way, I have your LinkedIn experiences out here, and I want to talk about that in a bit because I think there's some, and you kind of touched on that, the importance of that. But do you have like a favorite class or anything, or like a class that made you go wow or anything like that at DVC?
Yeah. So I have a degree in international business, and part of my curriculum was taking a lot of math related courses, right? Calculus and economics. And funny story, I'm actually not really good with numbers. But it's just one of the things that you have to get through to get your degree. So I had a teacher, Mr. Yoon. He was my microeconomics teacher, and I didn't have a really successful story, even though I got a B in the class in macroeconomics. I was a little bit skeptical on how I was going to do with microeconomics, but Mr. Yoon made it super simple. And his office hours were great. He was always super helpful. So yeah, I think he's definitely someone that impacted my journey and made my life a little bit easier.
Cool. Um, so then you headed off to your big 4-year university. Talk a little bit about that. How did the transfer work? Was it fairly easy? And then you go off to the big school because I think you went to what, Arizona State?
I did, yeah.
Hmm.
So yeah, my my school journey has a lot of ups and downs. So, like I said, because I was working full time and also going to school full time, that made it a little bit bumpy for me. But also on top of that, my dad, because of field that he's in, he moves around a lot. So as a family, we are always following my dad wherever he goes. So it got to a point where he was moving too much, he was traveling a lot, and it was a little bit hard on the family. So we decided to all move with him to Southern California. So we moved to San Diego. We were there for a few years, and I was in the middle of completing my associate's degree. So I had to transfer to a community college down in San Diego, and I was actually going to two different, no, three different community colleges down there just to be able to get my schedule filled up. And I also forgot to mention, but when I was going to DVC, I was actually also taking some classes at some point at De Anza Community College in close to San Jose because I was working in San Jose as well. So long story short, it took me 5 different community colleges to get my associate's degree. And because my dad was moving a lot, I ended up just choosing to go and do online school and finish my education in Arizona State University. I actually, before I went to Arizona State, I got accepted into Long Beach State. And I was going from San Diego to Long Beach 3 times a week, driving back and forth. And that was really hard. I was also working full time. So you can imagine how difficult that was. But so I was like, no, I don't think I can do this long term. It's not sustainable. So I decided to get into Arizona State, an amazing school as well. And, going back to the flexibility of being a student and a professional, that gave me what I needed. And it helped me to finish my education there. Yeah, it was an amazing school as well, great professors. And yeah, it was a great experience. I had to do what I had to do to graduate for sure.
Yeah, and I mean, it's like you're telling the story, and it's like your LinkedIn doesn't reflect that, and it's like I know most people's journey is, not as challenging, but it's like and I have a kid that went to school at Chapman down in Orange County, and I'd fly into Long Beach just because it was easier to get in and out of, but it's like going from San Diego, which is still further down the road, and it's like I know the 405 is super awesome as far as traffic goes. So
Yeah.
yeah, to say that it would have been unsustainable is I would say an understatement. So it's yeah, that's a pretty tough haul. And Arizona State is a fantastic school. They have a huge footprint. I mean, I think last I heard they have anywhere from 80 to 100,000 students, but a lot of them are online. They have a ton of satellite campuses and they have a and it's a wonderful school that has a lot of wonderful opportunities. Um, okay, so we're gonna fast forward a little bit. Well, kind of no, let's back up. We're gonna at the same time, but we're gonna talk professional career because there's a couple of things on here where I'm going, these are all the things that I think people should actually do. Like you worked in sales. I think everybody should have a job in sales at some point.
I
I
agree.
also believe you should work retail, which you did both at the same time.
Mhm.
Retail, whether it's waiting tables or dealing with people that are mad at you or,
Yeah.
whatever. You learn amazing skills. And so you were working, I guess, AT&T, you worked at Sprint, it looks like. Um, about that kind of that early, you're going through school and you're trying to survive and commute and do all the other fun stuff and be a good employee. What was that?
Yeah. Yeah, I think, something that you said is, I totally resonate with that is that I agree. And I even told my younger sister, everyone should have a job in sales at some point. It just really changes your life and it gives you so many different skills. It helps you deal with rejection, which, life, it's all about rejection, right? And knowing how to influence someone, how to position your value or a product, right? I think it's super important and it helps you in so many different areas of your life. And that's actually one of the reasons why I got that job. I wanted to get out of my comfort zone. Like I said, I wanted to improve my communication, I wanted to build up my confidence. And again, one of my uncles told me, "You should just get a job at the mall." I was like, "Okay." And I actually got a job at Sun Valley Mall. So I was literally going from DVC, going to Sun Valley Mall, and I started working there, just so I wasn't really looking to establish a career back then, but I just wanted to get some type of experience. But I was very fortunate because I had an amazing manager back then. He saw something in me. I was very young. I was 18, and I was like a sponge back then. I didn't know much. I didn't even know anything about sales, and they helped me. Like, my manager and the rest of the team really mentored me and built me up, um, and taught me everything about how to pitch a product, how to deal with rejection, how to maintain a sales quota, and all of that. And I ended up, becoming better and better every time. And from there, I actually got an opportunity to work at Sprint. So that was my first career bump, right? I got a direct promotion with that new job. I became a people leader. I was overseeing sales, operations, and a little bit of hiring as well. So that was my first uh, management position. Really, I was 19 when I became a manager. So that was I see that as an achievement, right? Because it isn't something that you typically see at such a young age with that responsibility. And I'll tell you as well, it was a little bit of a challenge because I was not only young, I was also female, right? And all of my employees were men and older than me. So all of my direct reports were in their 30s, and you have a little 19-year-old girl coming in and telling you how to do things and all of that. And I had a little bit of challenge at the beginning trying to gain that respect, but once they knew that I was good and I knew what I was talking about and I actually had structure, they started to respect me, and it was incredible. I actually, during my first quarter working at Sprint, I broke the sales record as a new hire in sales. So I got hired, and I started with a strong foot. I was doing the right things, and people started to respect me, and I won a lot of different awards, operational excellence awards. So that was very powerful. It really it gave me the perspective that I could do it and I was in control of my career. And if I put the right effort in the right places, it could really help me to build a strong, successful career.
Well, and I mean, first getting the bump is super awesome, but then I'm thinking about the skill set you had to learn to deal with people that were twice as old as you are, and they're men. And I have to admit myself that, yeah, I try not to, but my empty little head sometimes like, oh, she's a girl. We have a club here at DVC, automotive club, and it's a bunch of people that just love cars. And so one of the students that does a lot of stuff with us goes, "Hey, I can introduce the president." I said, "Great." Walks in the door with this woman, Demi, who and my first thought, and I actually was dumb enough to say it out loud, was, "You're a girl," because it was like, and I'm like, I can't believe I said that out loud, because it just, again, it's just like, but um again, it's like one of those things where you were able to overcome that, which shows great resilience, and it's like that's amazing, the skill set, and I don't think that's one of those things you're gonna learn in a classroom. So, you know,
Yeah.
so you got this amazing, opportunities to in sales. Now, along the way, you came into Tesla, so talk a little bit about that because you became a recruiter at some point, and
Yes. So I have a very untraditional career journey. I am the testament of what a non-linear career path looks like. So, like we talked about, I started working in sales. Then, before getting into Tesla, uh, I actually went and worked in financial services. So I went and worked at Citibank, and I was
Mhm.
working there, and I was doing a little bit of sales and operations, and that was also an incredible job. Back then, internally, I was going through a very rough period of time. I knew that I didn't want to stay in retail for the rest of my life and I wanted to do something different. So I was kind of going through this exploratory path and trying to see what I wanted to do with the rest of my life. So that's when I went and tried working in financial services. I learned a lot. It wasn't the right thing for me. I didn't. envision myself working there for the rest of my career. So then I went into the tech industry. So I started working for a small startup called Fountain. Well, back then they were small. Right now they're much bigger. And They are a company, it's a SaaS company. They sell an applicant tracking system for the gig economy and the hourly workforce. And that was my first experience working in tech. And that was incredible. I really liked it. I didn't work there for too long. I was there for about a little bit over a year, I believe. And from there, I got really excited about just the tech world in general. I was working in San Francisco. Um, I was taking BART every single day, and it was an amazing experience, right? I was still going to school full time, going to work full time, and you get into the city and you start hearing all of these big names, all of these big companies, and you see all of these massive buildings, and you're really like, all right, what else is out there? I was a little bit scared about working at a startup, right? So I'm like, well, I have worked at really big companies before. Maybe I can aim for a bigger company. So I landed an opportunity to work at Tesla, and it was transformative. Working there was just getting into Tesla was actually really challenging. People don't really put this into perspective sometimes, but Tesla being such an incredible big company, it's really hard to get noticed, right? So I was able to connect with the right people and tap into my network that could help me really to accelerate my job search process. And I landed my first interview and I couldn't believe it. I was like, oh my God, like this is real. I got an interview to work at Tesla. And it took me actually 7 interviews. It's such a long hiring process. And yeah, I mean, I got that job and I felt like I was on top of the world, Like my dad was like, "You got into Tesla. That's where you stay for the rest of your life. You build a career there. You don't need to go anywhere else." So that's how I got my job there. And yeah, I mean, working at Tesla definitely gave me a lot of perspective because you're working alongside some of the most brilliant minds in the world. Like everyone is smarter than the other, right? Everyone is incredible there. And it was amazing to work with these people and the conversations that you hear in during lunch or even when you're in your office, and it's really powerful. It fuels you with a lot of energy to want to do more and better every time. So I started as a level 3 recruiter, which is, just I would say, not the most entry level, but I was still a normal recruiter. And then I became a senior recruiter about a year and a half later.
Wow, that's well, and there's a point you made that we're gonna get back to in a minute. We're gonna finish up your this part of your resume, and then we're gonna get back to networking because that's one of those things I believe is absolutely critical. It's like that's how you get the jobs that you want. But um, so you went through there, you went to a long-term stock exchange, which that's got an interesting name. Touch on that briefly because it's like I don't even know what that is. I didn't have a chance to look it up. So and
Yeah.
then we'll get to what you're doing now, because I think what you're doing now is amazing, and I don't wanna get too fanboy on my own podcast, um, but we will talk about that a bit because I think what the stuff you're doing now is amazing. But talk a little bit about long-term exchange and what that is.
Yeah, so LTSC is actually a stock exchange, and it is a company that I worked for not too long, but it was also an incredible experience working there. I was there for about a little bit over 2 years. And the reason that I actually left Tesla to work at LTSC is because, you know, as you remember back then with COVID, we a lot of people went and worked remotely. So um, I was working remotely at Tesla, and then we got an email from Elon Musk in the middle of the night, and he was like, "You have to get back into the office." everyone goes back full time. And I was already living somewhere else, that was approved. And I had no way for me to go back and work at Fremont again. It was just not feasible for me. So I was looking for other options and I really liked what LTSC was doing. I applied very intentionally because I believe in working for mission driven organizations. For me is something that is extremely important. I don't want to just have a job because of it, right? I want to make sure that where I'm working is a place where my contributions have a greater purpose. And one of the things that really attracted me about this company is the size and stage that they were in. So they were looking for someone that could help out with hiring everyone in the company. So I was actually doing all the hiring for the company and I was overseeing all things talent and recruiting, right? So that was really fun because coming from a company like Tesla, where you have a very specific role and you're a part of a bigger team. Here at LTSC, I had the opportunity to build everything from scratch and bring all of the years of experience that I had from working at a bigger organization and seeing how things are done at a larger scale to bring that perspective and to put it in a smaller company to teach them how the bigger companies are doing it and successfully transition into that. So that was great. I really loved working there. It has an amazing culture. I made some incredible relationships as well. But yeah, that was a really nice experience for sure.
Well, and you brought up something is that, you had all this experience in the larger structure on like protocols and procedures and things that are good to do. And you had that opportunity to bring that knowledge to LTSE. Is that
Mhm.
right? Yeah. And I'm thinking about it is that they then didn't have to go through the pain of doing it wrong first, and then having to fix it because it's always easier to do it right the first time,
Yeah.
to hire somebody like yourself who's got the talent
Mhm.
and the know-how and the knowledge and like put the procedures in place first. And then it's like at that point, it's pretty much golden,
Yeah.
because then they don't have to go back and, oh gosh, why did we do that? Then they have to go
Right.
back and redo their reporting. And so and I know like from my experience with the Alumni Association, because they didn't have one when I started, is like building it from scratch is so much fun, you know?
Yeah.
It's stressful, but it is a lot of fun.
Yeah.
So
Definitely.
you're doing all this stuff, and now we're gonna get to the fun stuff, right?
Mhm.
'Cause, you, you launched Career Building Coach in January of 2020. Now that you probably had no idea what was coming in 3 months, but at the time you started launching this, because that was just before COVID decided to come and visit us
Yeah.
all. But, talk, kind of a little bit on how you got going in this and kind of like what the evolution of it has been.
Yeah. So, as you can see, I have a very untraditional career journey, and people started to notice that. People were asking me, "Hey, like, how are you moving around so much? You're doing sales, you're doing retail, and then you're going and doing operations, and then you go into fintech, and then you do all of these things. Like, how are you doing this? How is this possible?" So, some people criticize me for it. They're like, "That's not gonna work. That doesn't look good on a resume." But some other people were curious, right? And my answer was always the same. Like, I'm just trying to find myself, and I'm going to go through as many jobs as I need to do until I figure out what I want to do. And one of the important things that I want to highlight as well is that I didn't only navigated 6 career transitions, but I also got a better job each time. So I was moving upwards in my career with every transition. So I was being very strategic on where I wanted to land and why, and my objective behind getting into those jobs. So that also, again, going back to sales, right? Like that equips you with an ability to be able to frame your experience and position it correctly in a way where you become an asset in every single one of those jobs because I bring something that other people don't have from a linear career that they've just done the same thing over and over, right? I bring perspective. I bring the ability of bring different minds together. And that is very powerful. And when people were coming to me, how are you doing that? At the beginning, I was just giving free advice. I was just telling people, hey, this is what I'm doing. This is how, you should do it. And just, I have a natural mentoring personality, and I'm an older sister. So I feel like I always try to be an old sister to everyone, right? If anyone comes to me asking for advice, I'm always going to give it. But then my boyfriend back then, which is now my husband, who I actually met at DVC, by the way. Uh, yeah, we've been together for 10 years now. And he said, like, well, you're really good at what you do. You definitely have a good story to tell. People are attracted to it. Why don't you try to maybe do something out of it? My husband is very business mind. And I was like, no, there's no way people are gonna pay for that. Like, why? And I started just charging people. I didn't even have a structure on pricing, and I was a little bit scared and shy to like charge money for advice, and then I started to take it more serious and build like a structure, and I naturally became a mentor to people that way. And I didn't have any major plans on like taking this to the next level or anything, but I really enjoyed it. And I it's one of the things I was like my passion project. And yeah, I mean from there I started to get referrals from the people that I was helping. And yeah, I mean, I was just living off of referrals. It was just like a little bit of money on the side. And then April of last year, I decided to take this full time. And I noticed that this was something that I really felt connected with. I really enjoy doing this, and especially with how difficult the job market it is right now. Being a recruiter, I would live on LinkedIn all the time and see what people are posting. And it was devastating, seeing all of these massive layoffs left and right, and, seeing 365 days of not having a job. All of these. And I'm like, wow, like this is really sad. I want to contribute and help out in a way, in any way that I can. So I started creating content, and I was just giving free advice. I was just telling people what I wish someone told me back then on how to do things, on how to network correctly, on how to interview effectively, how to pitch yourself in an interview, how to navigate the workplace politics, and how to make the right decisions, right? Like being that mentor to others. And people started resonating with my message and what I was telling them. And that really helped me to build a very strong personal brand. So that was back in April. In April of last year when I started doing content, I wasn't really active on the platform. I was just posting things here and there. And it was mostly text posts. I wasn't really creating like really in-depth videos until later on in I believe it was August or September of last year. And from there, that's when I went viral multiple times. I have videos, I have over 20 million views, and it was scary at the beginning. I was like, "Oh my god, like 20 million people have seen my face." And if you try to look me up on, on a personal side, like I have 150 followers on my personal Instagram. I'm not someone that posts pictures about myself. I'm very private. And that was scary for me. I like just putting myself out there and having so many people see me. It gave me a little bit of anxiety at the beginning, but then that flooded my inbox with people wanting to work with me one on one. And from there, I started creating systems, and I really got educated on how to create a sustainable, profitable business. And just by building a personal brand on LinkedIn, by month 3, I believe, I got waitlisted. I couldn't take any more clients anymore. And it was incredible. I was like, wow, like this is actually working. And I was making really good money, and it was also scary. I'm like, oh my God, like I need to do things right and create the systems, you know? Um, so yeah, I mean, I think it was the power of building a strong personal brand and having a message that resonates with people can really help you take your business to the next level. And it's been the best decision that I've made in my life. And I'm extremely happy with what I'm doing. And, so far in 5 years of coaching, right, I've had over 300 success stories, right? And when I look back at these stories, I'm like, wow, like I can't believe I've had the ability to have all that impact in these amount of people. So it's been extremely gratifying.
Yeah. Um, so your nonlinear so I've had a very long nonlinear job journey. Mine just wasn't intentional. It was kind of happenstance, and I tell students that I work with because I have a couple of classes that I teach once in a while on networking, and I say I've had 3 different careers just recently in the last 30 years, and it's I got every single vertical through somebody I knew,
Wow.
and they're all very, very different, but it wasn't intentional, it just happened to be the way it worked out. Um, so I think that's so interesting because you come across as so poised and relaxed in front of our interview here and the other things you do, and it's like, yet you were so nervous about it, and so how did you kind of throw yourself into the deep end of the pool? Because, you kinda had this thing that was off on the side, it was like you were having fun with it, and then a year ago, you decided to really go in without the life preserver on, and just really do it all. How did you kind of work yourself into other than having an amazing husband that was, basically acting as your business coach, kinda pushing you in, but what was that process that finally made you wanna go in for the plunge?
You know, uh, I watched a movie that had a sentence that really stuck with me, which is you're going to start living life on your terms the moment you stop being so fearful. So, like, your life and the things that you want to do are the other side of your fears? So, you can stay in your little bubble and just hope things are going to happen. But unless you really go out there and start doing things, and you're always going to have fear for something, you're always going to be scared to do anything, right? But you can either stay scared or not do anything, or doing it scared. And once you actually do it, you realize that is not that bad. It's like, okay, well, I can do this. It's okay. And I'll tell you, till today, I still get scared. Every
Mhm.
time I have to record, my hands sweat, and I'm like, I have to have a little fan next to me because I'm like, oh my God, like I'm gonna do it wrong or something, right? And yeah, I mean, it's just part of the it's just part of the game, I guess. And I don't know, maybe one day it'll get easier. I'm sure a lot of other content creators out there still feel scared to be in front of the camera, right? Um, but it's okay. I love it. And if this is what's gonna help me reach more people, then so be it. I'm okay with that.
Well, I think that's great being able to lean into your fear. I mean, I've got a ton of things where for me, it's the same thing, everything from I do a lot of cycling, bicycles, and there's a ton of, like going up the tough hill, and it's just, and there are hills now that I used to like sweat and have to stop 3 times on that now it's like, I use that to basically cycle up to get to the other side as I'm picking my music that I'm going to listen to. But again, it's like, I also I do get nervous when, like we're coming on and I was a little bit nervous. I'm not always nervous when I'm gonna talk to somebody, but I was a little nervous because you have so much amazing content. You got lots of amazing people. I'm sure it's probably you and one other person, um, again, it was like I was kinda like going, "Oh my gosh, this is gonna be awesome." And I'm having a thoroughly fabulous time. But I think for me, having that nervous energy I actually look for that because then it means I'm not bored, and it
Right?
means it matters to me because if I don't have the nervous energy, then it doesn't matter to me, and so I kind of look for that when I'm doing stuff, so
Absolutely. It's a beautiful energy because, if you really like think, how many times have you been scared to do anything in your life? And that freezes people up from doing so many things. And you don't know, maybe if you would have done it, right, you would have been in a complete different place. And this is one thing that I always tell myself, like I don't want to be 90 years old and be like, what would I have done? Like if I go out there and I screw up, it's okay. I'm gonna get up and do it again or try something different, but just try. You will never know unless you try.
Yeah. Well, and that's actually how this podcast has grown is because I was told I had to have it back in August and September we launched. And along the way, several people have got, oh, you're making a mistake of that. And it's like, now it's, well, I'm talking to you. We've got a great audience. So let's turn it back to you a little bit. So I wanted to talk, I get to fanboy out a little bit on you. So I'm not going to go too much, but so I know I caught and I know we traded a couple messages and stuff, and I realize you're, like, super busy and stuff like that, so it was like, I'd just send you a message and that was okay. And and then what really attracted my attention, and I talked about this before we started, was you posted a moment you were having, and this is a month ago, 2 ago, and by the way, we're gonna post, like, your LinkedIn stuff and your website and stuff on here. Um, but it was a moment where it was like a raw moment you had where you post on LinkedIn, and it was, your 3 in the morning thoughts, it's like, Is it good enough? Am I doing what I," and I found that to be, well, I thought it was unusual for what people are usually posting on LinkedIn. It was a very, very personal moment for you. Um um, so if you don't mind, if you could talk about that for a moment and kind of what was going on at that point, or if this is like an and by the way, the shot that came with it, I'll see if I can find it and post it on there. But but it was an absolutely beautiful spot, that you go walking at. So if you don't mind, talk about that a little bit because I thought that was an amazing post.
Thank you. I appreciate that. So, I think we all have those days, but I'm not going to speak for everyone. I'm going to speak about myself. And I think imposter syndrome is a real thing. And part of my coaching with my clients is talking about how to overcome imposter syndrome because it happens to the best people out there, right? Before they go and do a big speech or a big TED talk, anxiety creeps in and you're asking, am I worthy of this? Like, am I being good enough? Is my message good enough? And that's one of the things that was happening to me. Um, you know, of course, part of my success has also been because of how passionate I am for what I do. And that comes with being very, very hard on myself. I can overwork myself very easily, and I can literally be in the office for 18 hours straight without sipping water if I want to, because I love what I do. And my husband has to pull me out of like, you have to go take a break right now. But I got to a period where I was extremely burnt out, and I was like thinking, is it worth it? Am I even having an impact on people, right? Is my message good enough? And, sometimes I do get these thoughts, right? I'm a foreigner, right? I have an accent. I'm different. Maybe people think I'm dumb. Maybe people think I'm not qualified enough or like who am I to like go and give all of this advice to people? And I think the reason that I decided to post that is because this is a topic that I've heard so many times from so many different people out there, but people are scared to show the ugly side because of, again, being afraid of what people are going to say about you, right? Or like this personality or idea of glorified influencer or, you know, it's going to crush. And I think it's important to be human and show to people out there that we all have these days. I have days where I don't want to give a coaching call. I feel sick, but I have to show up. I owe that to my clients. There are days where I don't want to record content because I had bad news for something and I don't feel it, but it's okay. You got to do it. And it's important to be authentic and show that we're all human. You see me talking about interview tips, in a 45-second video, but there is a person behind this, right? There's someone that has struggle, someone that deals with mental health, someone that deals with personal life, with financial issues, that with family issues, with all sorts of things that we all go through. And especially, being an entrepreneur and a first-time business owner, there's also so many different components there. Like, oh my God, like, is this sustainable? Is this something that I can continue doing long term? Right? Not having that steady paycheck anymore. Um, it can create a lot of different thoughts for sure. So that's why I wanted to be very raw and just really tell people, it's normal. I deal with it too. Even though you see me talking about imposter syndrome, it's normal. But it's not normal to stay down there and just cry about it. Face your fears, build that resilience, get up and go at it again. That's what's important. You just need to push through it, right? We all get scared, but it's important to move so that energy flows and can help you to continue create more things. So yeah, I think that's the main reason why I did it. And I was actually surprised with the amount of traction, how many people connected with my message and they were telling me, "Oh my God, like I feel the same way. Like this is true." Like you get to see the comments on the post, but if I could show you all the amount of different messages that I got in my DMs, people were like, "Wow, like I feel the same way." Other coaches as well, other business owners, other entrepreneurs, they were like, "This is so real." And I'm so glad that you talk about it. And I had us sit down with a couple of different of my colleagues and we had some coffee chats and we were navigating through all of these things. And it creates a beautiful connection because you realize that we're all in this together. I don't have it figured out. Whoever thinks out there that I have it all figured out, let me tell you, that's not true. And I don't think anybody does. I think we're all still trying to figure out life. And it's better when you get to figure it out with people around you, with mentors, peers, with other colleagues that you can lean on for advice or, just having a heart to heart conversation. Like, I'm dealing with something, can you listen to me and give me some advice? And I think those are very important conversations to have.
Yeah, thank you. I think one of the reasons it connected so well with me is I liked your comment or your content up to that point. I was like, going, "Oh, this is really good advice." Because, I mean, I hear it at DVC all the time. It's just people are alumni are like going, "Oh my gosh, I get," they're working to find a job. They, all this stuff. And your content was good. And then you posted that. I was like, and for me, you became more than just a face that posted stuff that was really good. And I was like, "Oh my god," and it was like at that moment and it's like at that moment you became human,
Yeah.
and I think that's one of the reasons that it connected with so many people is that you had that moment of bare honesty, and it was like and people are just like, "Oh my gosh, she's a person," and it's surprising sometimes for, for people that because we see these online personas
Yeah.
which, when you got a 45-second video, it's like you don't have a lot of time to do, 30 minutes of background and all that good stuff, but I thought it was an amazing piece. And there were some other pieces, by the way, I am signed up for your newsletter,
Great.
and we're gonna put that link and stuff. Now, if as we kinda get towards the end here, I wanna be respectful of your time, but I want a couple more things I wanna touch on. Um, you have built your personal brand from because there was somewhere I saw, and I could be completely wrong about it. Well, you talked about back in September of last year, you kinda made a conscious effort to, like, be very, very intentional about what you did, and you're now at 40,000 followers, and who knows how many connections you have. I was being like super like how many followers I had, and then I saw yours. I'm like going, "Oh, I'm not even getting started," So, but talk about how you kind of went through that. You had this intentional mindset, and kind of what does it look like to build that personal brand? Because it was, I mean, now that I look back and you said it, I'm like going, oh my gosh, she was absolutely brilliant in this. And
Yeah.
but yeah, talk about that a lot.
Definitely. Like I said earlier, I've always had LinkedIn since I first applied for my first job, back when I was 18. And I wasn't really active on the platform until, well, I was using it for recruiting purposes and just like everyone, posting a job update or a promotion or, very, very simple. I wasn't really investing in it. And then in April of last year, I was testing the waters and trying to see what's out there, what are people doing, and I started just posting, a little bit of career advice, but it was mostly like text posts with a picture here and there. I was just trying to figure out LinkedIn from a different perspective, which is like the content creation, right? And it wasn't giving me a lot of traction and I wasn't really growing. Back then, maybe I was getting like 100 followers a month or something. So I'm like, okay, well, maybe it just takes a long time. I used to see people that had like 10,000 followers. I'm like, wow, like that's impressive. That's incredible. And then, again, my business mastermind slash husband was like, why don't you just create content? Why don't you just create videos? And I'm like, me? No way. I cannot just sit in front of a camera and talk. And he's like, yeah, you can. You're going to do it. So I did that. And the moment that I started creating content, that's when my personal brand took off. But aside from that, I think there are multiple different things that also helped me out to not just build a following, but a very strong community, which can be very different. And also speaking from a business standpoint, right? Like having followers doesn't mean more business, right? So how do you balance all three, having a high following and having a strong community and actually generating leads for yourself? So I started really to interact with others as well. So that's one thing that is extremely important. Just, commenting on other people's posts, right? Having like not just commenting something like, oh, that was really nice, but something like, oh, like continuing the conversation, asking thoughtful questions and engaging with other people's posts in a way that is insightful. That started helping me to I actually had a couple of different comments that went viral that had like 3,000 likes and I didn't even know that was possible. But yeah, I mean just having those conversations on the posts are really really important as well. And then taking the conversations from the comment section to the DMs and then from the DMs to a coffee chat and really starting to build strong connections with people. Um, and, I think having a strong message that resonates with people, that the way that I try to make my content is like what is the kind of advice I would want to hear? Not what I think as a coach people need, but like as a content consumer, like what do I want to hear? Like if I was looking for a job, if I was struggling with negotiating an offer, right? How can I make this simple in a way where people can be like, "Oh, that makes sense." Right? So I think that's important as well. And showing up daily. At the beginning I was posting like twice a week and now I'm posting daily. So being consistent, LinkedIn is a place where if you put the work is going to pay you back. It's not like Instagram where you just go and post a video and then you'll just go viral in a day, right? You just have to hope that happens. Here, if you put in the work and the effort, it will happen. You will get those followers. You just have to put your energy in the right places.
Cool. I absolutely agree. I mean, we've been using that was literally how we built the Alumni Association was my not nearly as targeted or sophisticated use of LinkedIn, which now that you've given me that little tip, guess what? We're going to be working on that. One of the things you alluded to and something that I'm a huge believer in is networking. And I don't mean, I mean, there's part of it going to the networking event and going, "Hey, how you doing?" and putting your cards in your right pocket and handing it to the person and getting it and putting theirs, with the notes in your left pocket. And there's that stuff. But what else? I mean, how do you build your network? Because your network is very intentional. And I'd love to talk about that a little bit here as we kind of get towards the end.
Definitely. Definitely, making not just relationships, but the right relationships can really help your career take an exponential course. And what do I mean by the right people, right? Um, it's important that you're very strategic about who you connect with because you want to surround yourself by around people that can advocate for you in a professionally speaking, and someone that can help your career move the needle as well, right? So you have to be very intentional with who you want to connect and why. And not just because you're looking to expect something in return, like, oh, I'm going to be friends with this person because he or she can help me get a referral, but nurturing that relationship smartly, right? Like having those conversations. Like I was always friends with my managers, for example. I had other coworkers that were shy or they would see their manager as someone above them and they would just keep it very professional and not really try to get more involved with them, but that is very important, right? Showing up real and also trying to even be like get yourself connected with directors, right? People in HR, and sitting at the bigger table is important, right? I have this very, very vivid image of when I was at Tesla, for example, like when we would go on lunch, everyone gets up and two groups split up. All the recruiters go sit in one table and then all the managers sit in a different table. And me, I go with them too. Like I go and have a conversation with them. And like you believe that you are a part of that group too, and go and make those relationships is so important. That helps you a lot. And that's in a professional setting, right? When you're at work. But even on LinkedIn, right? Like you can still tap into your network, create new opportunities, right? This is one of the things that I teach my clients. It's if you don't have a network, is not an excuse. You can always create a new one, right? I do this with a lot of my clients that are looking to transition into new careers, right? Oh my God, I've been in healthcare for 10 years. I don't have any experience in tech. Who am I? How am I going to create a network here? I'm like, you have to start. Go and start talking to people. Start engaging on their LinkedIn posts, right? Drop a thoughtful comment and then take that conversation from LinkedIn to a coffee chat. That happens all the time and it's totally doable. You're in control of making your own network.
Um, that's like the best advice ever. I'm well, no, I'm a huge believer in that. I've told a number of people I've worked with is that I've had three completely different careers just in the last 30 years, actually since 2000. And it's like each one of them has a different vertical. I've had to build a new network in every single one. So when I got into this one, I was like, I got this. I know what to do. So the other thing I think is you have to be patient with it. I
Definitely.
think too often people, they friend somebody and then they think, oh, this will pay off in 2 days. It won't.
Yeah.
So, again, I want to be respectful of your time. So the last question is, and I told you about this before we started, was um, uh, uh, if you knew then what you know now, what would you tell yourself?
Yeah, well, I told you that I have a little bit of a controversial answer to this. And the reason why is because I think about it a lot, and a lot of people ask me this question as well. And one of the first things that I see is that this creates a lot of anxiety for people and a lot of guilt as well. Because what I believe is that if you didn't make a decision back then, it's because you weren't equipped with the tools or the knowledge to be able to do it, right? So even if the opportunity presented itself to you back then, maybe 10 years ago, I don't know, maybe you would have ruined it. You weren't ready. So, there's this joke among millennials, right? Is like, oh my God, what was I doing in 1995? What was I in my mom's womb? I should have been investing in real estate. Is like, no, like you couldn't, right? So you didn't, there's no way you would have known what to do back then because you weren't ready. And I think that's one thing that a lot of people can get can feel a lot of guilt around that. It's like, I should have done that, or I should have made that decision, right? And what I believe is like, if you didn't, it's because you weren't ready. You didn't have the tools to be able to make that decision back then for whatever reason or another. Maybe you didn't have the wisdom. Maybe you didn't have the right network, or you didn't have the right foundation, right? And even if that opportunity presented itself to you, maybe you would have ruined it. So what I like to think about is just stay focused on the present and see how you can focus in building a better tomorrow, right? Dwelling in the past, I don't think it brings anything positive. It's always good to reflect on, past experiences, but I think I like to stay focused in today and put my energy in how I can be a better version of myself for later.
Wow, that's actually very wise. So, well, I want to thank you for the time. This has been absolutely wonderful, Karla, and I will, like I said, I'm going to post all your stuff in the show notes, and so folks that are listening to this or watching this wherever you're picking up our podcast, you'll get lots of opportunities of that. And with that, we'll call it a day. And again, thank you so much for your time. And that's it.
Thank you, Charlie. It's been wonderful. Thank you for the fun conversation. It's such a pleasure to be a part of this audience, and hopefully, my message can help anyone out there. DVC, like I said, is always going to have a special place in my heart. And yeah, whoever's listening to this, you got this. I believe in you. You have the of your life to do whatever you want. It's never too early, never too late. And yeah, thank you again for the opportunity. It was lovely
You
to
bet.
be here with you today.
Thank you for tuning in to DVC Alumni, where every story inspires the next, the podcast for the DVC Alumni Association. You can contact us at alumni@dvc.edu with any comments, and be sure to leave a like and subscribe to our podcast.